Thank you guys for coming out and watching the film. And all right, just want to do a quick shout out to a few people here. Ada Samuelson's here, huge supporter of the film. Thank you so much, Ada. As well as Mark Antal and Oliver Kopany. You guys have been great. Antal Task Force and Governor George Pataki Leadership Center, Concord Education. These are all organizations that have made this film happen. So thank you guys, as well as my family from Long Island. They're here. Beth, Leo, Kate, Kelly, everyone else. Thank you guys for coming and supporting the film and supporting me. Thank you.
Well done. So there's so much to unpack and appreciate about this film. I mean, you've done a huge service for all of us. All of us, we read the headlines and we see the stories and we see some of the personal stories, but this absolutely puts the human face on it. And it gets down to some real elemental truths. Amazingly how, or it's amazing how articulate all the people you talk to were. Whether it's translated in subtitles or whether they were speaking in English, just completely distilling down exactly what the truth of the situation is. And remarkable thing. There's so many different nuggets. I mean, just right at the beginning, music is our strength to hold on, our answer to the darkness. And throughout the film, the sort of contrast between the actual war footage and the wreckage and the disastrous effects of the war against the music and the music in the midst of it, but also the sort of the music video quality of some of the music, which is this cognitive dissonance that it exists in that world. But then you get to the concert in an empty concert hall. And there's just so many just signal moments that just stand for what's going on in this film. And it's just brilliantly put together. I guess that one of the first things I want to talk about is that there's, in the program it's listed, there's some 14 cinematographers. And obviously a lot of the footage is taken on iPhones. And some of it's blown up from iPhones and some of it's kind of kept in the same screen size. So was one of the biggest parts of this enterprise to edit this all together? I mean, how did that all work out?
Yeah, I mean, collecting all this footage was difficult. You know, all these characters, they have a phone, and luckily they have a phone, and they used it when this invasion was happening, and we collected all that footage from them, as well as having, you know, real cinematographers embedded with some of these musicians when they're going to the front lines, when they're operating a drone, or then going to a concert hall. So we had our own personnel with them, and we...
Is there feedback on this? Is anybody hearing the feedback? No. Okay, good.
Okay. Yeah, so it was a team effort. We had, you know, Ukrainians all across the country helping, and, you know, with Cultural Forces, Artem Poznansky was with them every day. So he would shoot for months at a time, and he'd upload it to Dropbox to my team in Irpin, and we'd sort through all the footage and, you know, find what was the gold and all that. So, you know, Artem was phenomenal, and as well as Stas Gorenko, who is with Andrei Halovnik. They're like best friends, so they go everywhere together, and he's filming him wherever he goes. So that kind of access made this possible.
Yeah, and but when you got there, I mean, you as background, your connection to Ukraine came from your NFL film that you made about American football in Ukraine, and then joining the armed forces, and so you had connections there. And then there was other things that got you back to make this film. When you got there, did you sort of organize all identify the musicians that you wanted to do your special footage on, and to interview the red-haired, I can't remember any of their names, but the red-haired lady, the one in the very beginning of the film that came back to at the end?
Yeah, Svetlana Taraborova. You know, when I first started making this, I didn't really know what it was going to be. I didn't know it was going to be a collection of short stories. I was just focusing on Andrei, because he was kind of featured in the football doc where we showed him at St. Sophia Cathedral singing Chervona Kaina. I figured let's expand on his story, and that kind of led to Sasha Chemarov, and then it led to Cultural Forces, and then Slava Vakarchuk. So with all those coming up on board, it felt like, okay, let's do something broader on music as a whole and war together, and these individuals, how, you know, their defiance, you know, their music is their defiance, and it keeps them going. And with Svetlana, we actually brought her into the film a lot later in the post-production process. we felt like the film needed some life and some warmth, and she was perfect for that. We also, at that time, there was a video that went viral of a Bandura player playing Metallica's "Nothing Else Matters" on the front lines. So we were trying to incorporate that song. She was, really wanted to do a Ukrainian take on it. So we coordinated her with these amazing street musicians in Kyiv, Pavlo and Stas and Inya, and we basically formed a band and just showed what life was like for a musician. They're practicing in a bomb shelter, what Svetlana's life is like, having 3 children while the country's at war. And then, having that theater performance at that point in the film, after you see what happened with Ilya, there's so much emotion, and it's like, where do you go from there? And we felt like that was where to go, is to release that emotion with Svetlana's performance, which is really like, bonding with each other and their countrymen, and moving forward. And that's kind of where we came up with that.
Well, it does. There's so many wonderful moments, as you say. You picked a lot of the gold out of there. I know that I was on the edge a lot of times, different times. But when they I don't know how you pronounce it, Lviv.
Ilya?
Lviv. No, the town.
Oh, Lviv.
Yes, Lviv says goodbye to a hero.
Yeah.
And that whole thing, and that woman dropped to her knees as the car went by. It was just.
Yeah.
And then the school children for
Right.
their music teacher, and then his message to them. I mean, the way that everybody connected to each other.
Yeah.
And it was around music, but it was also around the common cause.
Right. Now, a lot of those moments were spontaneous. We were just filming in Lviv when that happened. But that actually is a frequent occurrence. Every day around noon, those cars go through the center of town, and everyone stops and waits for them. So we caught that and used it in the film, but there was also those school children that you mentioned. We were actually with the Pataki group, and we were just walking around Lviv and stumbled upon them, and we were all just blown away by the emotion that they sang with. And then we learned about their teacher, and we were like, everyone could connect with that, because everyone in their lives has had a teacher that they absolutely love and wouldn't want to see them go off to war.
Oh, and then a musician who says something like, "We're fighting for the fundamental rights of living beings to stay alive." I mean, and then for sovereignty for Ukraine. But the first thing is for living beings to stay alive. And as you see what they're up against there, that's exactly what we're dealing with. But it's such a human face for it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Ukraine, they're fighting for democracy in Europe and across the world, and it's really our fight too. They're the front line of that fight, and it's really on us to continue to support them.
Yeah. Well, the putting together of the film, how long did it take you to do with getting all that footage? You got it all organized, and there you get all this footage. It's getting uploaded to your Dropbox.
Yeah, I mean, it took.
Did you do a lot of the editing yourself, or
No? So I had 2 editors in Irpin, Kadim and Julia, and they're just fantastic. And basically, it took us like 8 months to gather all this footage, and we were still shooting in the post-production process. So while we were editing, we were also shooting, and Kadim and Julia, both don't speak English. I don't speak Ukrainian. So we would have a post-producer, Natalie, who would help us translate between us. And we would go through, we'd have video chats where we'd be translating between us to, perfect the film and go through notes. And I mean, it was a tedious process, but it was worth it, because I couldn't do this film without Ukrainian editors,
Yeah. So, and you said before, was it going to be a series of short stories? Was it going to be weaving together the things, the music and the war footage? But how did you come across the story of Ilya and his family and that whole story? Because it was beautifully played out between his widow and his brother and his comrades, and it played out so beautifully. So how did that come about? You get that story.
When I was working on the NFL documentary, Who If Not Us, I was in touch with the 2 gentlemen you saw, Nazar and Yuri, and they were in the same unit as Ilya. So when Who If Not Us was released, around that same time, Ilya was killed. And Yuri relayed that information to me and had all these stories about him and how beautiful it was to have him around performing. So that's kind of where I learned about the story. And, I was close with Nazar. He was sending footage from the front lines for that football documentary. So that felt like a story that needed to be told. A music producer, DJ, who, loves his country so much, saw what happened in Bucha and said, I can't sit here, I need to do something. His brother goes with him, and it's just a really tragic story to that, where Nazar gets injured and he's at the hospital, and then he hears that his brother has been killed. So, it was a difficult time to talk with these guys about that, but I think after some time had passed, I approached them about including that story in here, and they didn't really know how it would come across. But I actually did watch the film with all of them, with Maria and Nazar and Yuri in Kyiv, and they were all really thankful for how the story was told.
It was amazing, and to get the brother who wasn't going to even join in, but then went with his brother, and also everything that she said at sort of that funeral scene. Was that actually a funeral scene, or was that just at his gravesite, and you filmed it there? And...
Right. So in Bucha, there's this really. It's this cemetery in Bucha that has all these really huge. Cemetery gravestones.
Mausoleums.
And, with pictures, and that was a beautiful one they had of Ilya. So the thought there was, let's have them speak about him there. So we planned that out a little bit, and we were able to get all those different characters to show up, and it worked out.
It worked out amazingly, and everything that she said. I mean, it's hard to believe that it wasn't scripted because it was so absolutely perfect,
right.
And it was just off the cuff.
Right, absolutely,
unbelievable,
yeah.
Just so unbelievable.
Yeah, when I saw her and she watched the movie with us, and afterwards she was like, I don't remember saying any of that.
Well, I'm so glad they got to see the film anyway. So,
yeah.
were there other people in the film that got to see it? And do you screen it?
Yeah. So Maria, she absolutely. Was along with the mother of Nazar and Ilya. She was there, and emotional, but thankful that their stories heard and their voices are heard. I also got to watch the film with Sergei Ivanchuk, the opera singer.
Okay.
When we were at King's College in London, he after the film, he performed Ave Maria, and it was a really beautiful moment to see him so strong, he could sing again, really powerful. And it was the first time he had watched the film, and he was really blown away. He said it was like reliving that part of his life, but he felt like it was done in the right way.
Oh, that was another incredible short story, and I had to write down the punchline when he's talking about all his wounds and his recovery and this and that. And he said, then the journalist came and asked me to sing. And I'm like, are you kidding me? What
Right.
the hell?
Yeah.
Thanks, journalists. I'm glad I'm not one anymore. So that story was incredible. But every one of the people and it seemed as if they knew you were making the film for this, because they are reaching out to us. They're saying, this is you. This is what's coming for you. This is what you have to see and what you have to know. And imagine if it's your neighbor and so forth, as if they knew that this was going to get out to the world. So the important thing is, because that's so sincere and so real and so effective, how do we get this film out to more people to see it, to see the human face of what's going on in Ukraine?
Well, festivals like this are excellent. Thank you again for Hamptons Doc Fest. This is awesome. Thank you for showing the film, getting it some exposure. It's hard to break into the mainstream and make people aware of something like this. We've done all these different festivals. We're working on doing a theatrical run in January, February, across the U.S. and Canada and Europe, and then eventually put it on digital platform of some sort and get it out to everybody.
Right. So do you have a distribution deal for the theatrical release?
I'm doing that myself, and then I'm also doing like some universities
Okay.
around the U.S. And then we have like a partner that we're working with to do digital.
Well, that's amazing. And the HBO film, the NFL film, is that visible on a streaming platform in some way? So
Yeah,
people
that's
can see
actually
that?
that's available on YouTube and Peacock. It's called Who If Not Us, NFL 360 Who If Not Us. It won a Sports Emmy Award. It's really just a beautiful story about an American sportscaster befriending a bunch of Ukrainian football players who are now soldiers, and we learn about their families, and we bring their families to Munich, and they meet Tom Brady. So if you are interested in this one, you might like that one as well.
No, I think it's definitely worth seeing, and I want to see it. So we have time for a couple of questions from the audience. So right here, please. Oh, they're bringing you a microphone. They're bringing you a microphone.
Hi. Three things. Thank you for the film. And then a word to the audience, and then a question for you. The word to the audience is that we've been moved, but there's more that we can do besides being moved. There's a Ukrainian church in Riverhead. They accept funds. They organize themselves in different ways. That a woman who delivers our mail in Watermill belongs to it. People one runs into in Riverhead who have a huge yard sale going on, often 5 cents for a lovely something, $10 for a bag of many lovely things. In any case, they accept money. And you can look them up. I don't remember the name right now, but you can look them up. And that is a way of reacting to your, at least from my perspective, reacting to the feelings that we've shared today. Now, a question to the director, quite simply, isn't mine the reaction that happens often? And have you contacted the Ukrainian churches all over the country? Because that might be a way of perhaps finding an audience, but being of other help besides to our hearts and souls, help to over there.
Thank you for your kind words. Yeah, we're talking to different Ukrainian groups, and then from there reaching out to different venues. One of those groups, Cultural Forces, they just did a tour of the U.S. and they played a bunch of Ukrainian churches and community centers. So I'm in touch with them and their management team to figure out where we can place the film for Ukrainian cultural centers.
It's incredible. Yes, anything we can do to help, of course. Anybody else? Question? All right, here.
As you know, we had the elections in November, and the president-elect is advocating an end to the war immediately, total ceasefire. Is there any political organization blocking your distribution of this film?
No. I mean, I don't know what's going on as far as what platforms want to see, but it's very competitive for indie docs in general. But it's not something I've seen. I can't really speak too much to that.
Have you had an opportunity to discuss the American elections in November with the people in the documentary, Ilya and family?
A few. I've talked to a few of them, actually mostly the football players from the other documentary. But to be honest, they seem to be pretty optimistic. I think they're just hopeful for a change. So that's what I'm kind of hoping happens as well. So.
Well, I think one of the strong points in the film was when one of the people said that they were talking about the support they were getting from just ordinary people. They said, we're ordinary people, and when we get support from ordinary people, that's what it happens. And beyond policy and politics and the headlines and the stories of who gains from this and who does that, this kind of human story reaches ordinary people, and as was said, to go to the Ukrainian churches, to go at the ground level, the grassroots level,
Right.
just for the support of living beings to survive.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where it has to happen, because at the political level, it just doesn't really give in.
Yeah, and I think a film like this is important because so many people, all they see from Ukraine is the President Zelensky, and I feel like there's so many other voices that need to be heard and that should be heard, and can connect better with other audiences. So these are those people. These are, intelligent, articulate musicians that can speak to what's going on there. So I feel like these individuals need to be put in a position where they can speak to more people.
Well, through your film, you're letting them do that, and I hope they reach a lot of ears and a lot of support, because one of the other wonderful lines in there was that it's you have to use culture to build a society, and that starts with culture, and this is culture to survive. It's medicine, and it's a beautiful thing. I think we have one more question, and then we've run out of time.
Rob?
If we want to donate to the cause in Ukraine, what would be the best charity to direct our funds to?
I would probably say that the group that helped make this film, the George Pataki Leadership Center, they have a Ukraine Relief Fund, and they do humanitarian trips out to Ukraine pretty frequently. Also, Antal Task Force, they do a lot of medical training. They go in there with teachers who can teach people how to put on tourniquets and other medical techniques. So those two is what I would recommend.
What's their name?
The Governor George Pataki Leadership Center, from the Governor of New York, former Governor of New York, and then Antal Task Force.
Okay, real quick.
Yeah, I'd just like to get back to the filmmaking itself. I'm wondering how you decided to balance the musical parts and the destructive parts. You had to include a lot of war, a lot of horrible things. And as a sort of a filmmaker, director, how did you decide to balance those so that it wasn't just a war movie with raucous singing?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult balance, and we thought about every single shot in this film, and we didn't want to overdo it with the war footage, but we also had to include a significant amount of it because this film is for an international audience and people need to know what's going on there. So that's kind of what you're thinking when you're making something like this, like how much is too much. Your job is to bring your audience through this film without them walking out the door and being sad, and being miserable. So it's like, how do you balance that so that people can make it through this film, and at the end, kind of emotionally inspired.
Well, I think you did that amazing job of that, and the human spirit that it is prevalent throughout the film and through the musicians, but just everybody's, the human spirit is remarkable, and remarkable film. Thank you so much. Remember to mark your ballots, please, when you go out, and thanks
Thank you.
again.
Thank you, Andrew.